Hey guys, I'm Brooks Higginbotham, LCSW, and welcome to Overcoming Peer Pressure here on Harmonifi. As humans, we all have an innate desire to fit in and to be accepted by those around us. Sometimes that innate desire to fit in starts to get a little bit distorted. We start to do things that we wouldn't normally do just to gain acceptance from those around us. We start to drift into what's called codependency, and more on that in a different video. But especially in high school, peer pressure can be used against us to do things that we wouldn't normally do, to drink, to use opioids, to use other substances, and the consequences can be potentially deadly. See, the problem with this is that especially today, one use of an opioid can be fatal. Fentanyl, carfentanil, and all these other different types of opiates and opioids are fatal if used, especially in someone that's never used opioids before. So peer pressure can come in a lot of different forms. It can be a really simple thing, such as a friend coming up to you and saying, here, take a hit of this, or here, take a drink of this. It could be you at a party where everyone around you is drinking and using different substances, and you feel like you have to do the same thing to fit in. There are all different types of peer pressure, but the basic tenet of peer pressure is you feeling like an outcast if you don't engage in a specific act. Here's the thing. It can be really difficult in a situation like this to be able to say no. Because let's face it, there are consequences to saying yes and to saying no. Saying yes, you could potentially lose your life. There could be other consequences. There can be all kinds of different things that happen. Taking one drink under 18 years old makes you 50% more likely to develop a substance use disorder later on in life. But also, saying no makes you feel like you'll be a social outcast, like you won't have friends. There are very perceived, real consequences from both of these things. So how do we make peace with this? How do we deal with this? So at a certain age, especially in your teenage years, people look at social validation as the most important thing in the world. And this is seen all over pop culture in tons of different movies. You know, as early as the 90s in Clueless, and then Mean Girls, and then constantly through social media and different types of media. But it gets easier when you get older. See, your frontal lobe is still not fully developed, and that's the stop and go system in the brain. So you're going on impulses and drives and all this other stuff. And the problem with all of that is that you can't make completely rational decisions when you're overflooded and overflowing with emotions. The statistics say that 60% of people in high school have been offered a drink or a drug at some point in their life. I believe that to even be a little bit higher. And the vast majority of them are starting to say no more and more and more because they value their health. They value their relationships with their family. They value their grades. They value their future. And they value those things more than the social validation that's happening in those situations. So when faced with peer pressure, take a step back, be authentic, and start to look at your own values. Now, I know it sounds cheesy, for lack of a better term, to say, just say no and you're doing the right thing, but these things are true. The thing about cliches is that most often they're true. So being able to be authentic around your friends and say, I don't want to do that, should deepen your connection with these people instead of pushing them away. Because if saying no to something that you don't want to do pushes someone away, they don't have your best interest in mind anyway. But if you say no and they say, that's cool, I respect that, let me go get you a Coke or some pretzels or this or that instead, then you know you've got a really good friend. Then you know who's really there for you and who's not there for you. So while peer pressure is one of these things that can be used to get you to do things that you don't want to do, if you stand up for yourself, you can use this potential for crisis as an actual opportunity to deepen your connection with yourself and with your friends. So another technique that you can use for peer pressure is something called role playing. Actually practice what it's like to be able to say no to people in these situations. When you start doing these things, you start to create these pathways in your brain, and this makes it a little bit more comfortable. I wouldn't go onto a baseball field without practicing. It just wouldn't happen. Because if a ground ball got hit to me and I'd never practiced before and I didn't know what to do, it could potentially hurt me, go through my legs, and all kinds of stuff could happen. The point is that if I practice what to say in regards to a social situation, then I'm much more comfortable being able to say what I want to say in that situation. So, by listening to yourself and saying no to peer pressure, you increase your self-confidence and your self-esteem, and you develop a greater relationship with yourself and those who really have your best interests in mind.